Will Penny is an Ampura brother, my good friend. Not seen you for ages. How are you, man?
Oh, very well, Regan. Nice to see you. It's been ages since the Maldives, I believe.
Since the Maldives, yeah, that's a year and a half ago almost already.
Yeah, just as the pandemic was starting to pop up.
Take a grip of us all. Ampura brother, middle of the summer, arguably one of the best places to be at this time of year on the planet. Can't beat it, eh?
Yeah, without a doubt. Like it's always good to be here. I actually just got back from a trip in Corsica. I was there for 10 days.
Yeah.
It was really really nice. Of course, like beautiful destination and like gorgeous views, some nice jumping. But of course, it's always good to be at home, which is in Puerto Brava in the summer. Like everyone's chasing the sun to all around the planet, and many people find themselves here in summer. So it's a good place to be.
We actually arrived in Ampura Brava at the same time, 2004, didn't we?
Yeah, it's true. It seems
Yeah.
like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. You with your dreadlocks, me with my bald head.
Yeah. Well, I followed suit.
We're there together.
Look, huh?
It's the best
Took a
way,
bit of
isn't it?
time. Oh yeah, without a doubt.
It's the best way.
Practical. I cut my hair this morning, actually.
Yeah, well, I've just had a little bit of a trim. Just, I'm going on camera. People always say in interviews, I'm going into hair and makeup. I just say I'm going into makeup. So that's it.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
So let's go all the way back, well, right to the beginning. Skydiving family. Tell us about your earliest memory. What was going on?
My earliest memory of skydiving was, I think it was the day that my dad did his first tandem, which I believe was like 86 or 87 in South Africa.
Before he started jumping, this is
Sorry?
your dad's first tandem.
Yeah, that was his first interaction with the sport, and that was the first time that I remember the sport.
Yeah.
And I never forget, I saw my dad in a harness, and I was like, well, what are you doing that for? I just totally didn't get it. And he was like, well, for fun. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it seems pretty random, but anyway. And then very quickly after that, my parents opened a drop zone.
Yeah.
And then that was just like a pretty normal thing, like going to drop zone on the weekends or whenever we needed to go. So it was never really their full-time business. It was just more a club.
Yeah.
But they bought an aircraft and started the drop zone, but it wasn't their core business at all. It was more just for the sport. So pretty much since very very early days, I can remember hanging out on drop zones. It's pretty much the most normal environment for me, to be honest.
I didn't know that. I didn't know your dad had just did a tandem and then he went into business. I just assumed they'd been in all the life, from being teenagers. I didn't realize that. That's good.
I think my dad must have been then like 30 or 31 when he started jumping.
Yeah.
Because what happened is that there was, back in the early 80s or 80s to 90s in South Africa, there was a lot of really big boogies because we had access to huge aircraft like C-130s and Kazas and stuff like that. And then a group, my father's always been in the hotel industry and hospitality, and like he was managing a massive hotel with like a lot of facility and infrastructure. And basically what happened is these skydivers approached him and said, look, we're having a boogie and we need a place to stay and to eat. And he was like, you're having a what? And he was like, and then so they used his hotel as a facility, and then he was just checking out the whole vibe, and he was going, well, that looks like a whole bunch of fun, let me try a tandem. And then the rest is pretty much history.
Is it still going on, the operation there?
No, that we moved away from that part of the country, like I think in 92 or 93, something like that. And then it changed hands a few times. And I think they still do a couple of events there every now and then, but the drop zone, the club itself, I don't think is operating all the time.
Yeah. Before you started jumping then, because you did your first tandem at 10, what were you doing before that? Were you in any other sports, or what was going on?
Yeah, actually, before I was jumping, I was pretty big into jiu-jitsu. I used to really enjoy that. And then just basically like young boy kind of sports. So I was played a little bit of cricket at school, but I was not really so much into mainstream sports, to be honest. When I was young, I always found it a little bit random. I was more like cruising around on my bike and skateboarding a little bit and stuff like that. But I wasn't so big into like rugby and things like that. I just never really kind of tickled my fancy.
Yeah. Did you have ideas at an early age that you might leave South Africa at some point, or were you? When did that start to enter your head? When did you start to think about that?
Oh, that's a really cool question that not many people have ever asked me. I always remember having like a really strong thirst for adventure and travel.
Yeah.
And I remember even as a young boy, like saying to myself, I'd really love to see as much of the world as I can and touch different currencies and eat different foods and experience new things. But it was more perhaps like a romantic idea that I suppose many people have as kids or as adults, but it wasn't like a hard and fast thing for me to chase. But then as I started to get more and more into skydiving out of my own kind of wish, because of course I was super into it from a really young age, but it wasn't until I really found free flying that I went like all in. And then I realized pretty quickly that if you wanted to progress in skydiving, all of the resources, knowledge was outside of South Africa. So I was super hungry, like looking around for places to go. I went to the States, I went to Australia, and then it was basically that thirst for knowledge and trying to get better, because South Africa is a really small skydiving nation with very limited resources. In terms of also like skill, the average skill there is pretty low, let's say, compared to the rest of the world. So you have to travel if you really want to learn and to get on a world stage. So it was basically for my thirst for knowledge of skydiving or free flying that led me on that road of traveling. And then I decided, like, because I went to the States and it was really cool. I had a fantastic experience, but I didn't really gel so much with the culture.
Where did you go?
I was in a place called Skydive America in Pahokee.
Right.
It's a disbanded drop zone now, but it was in the heyday of free fly, it was like the second biggest wave after Eloy.
Right.
Really, really cool place with some nice, funny stories behind it too about the guy who was funding it, et cetera, et cetera. You can look a bit deeper into that if you want. Classic skydiving stuff. You got to love it, you know.
Right.
So I had an amazing experience there. I met some good friends, and who I'm still like close to today. But yeah, as I said, I didn't really identify with the American culture in Florida. It wasn't so much my idea of life. So I was at university at the time, and then as I was finishing university, I was like, hey, well, I want to go check out Europe, Spain, because I heard about Empuria Brava, and actually my dad was friends with one of the ex-owners, Ivan Kufal.
Yeah.
Was a Czech South African guy. So I decided just to like come here after my studies and have a look what was going on. And then straight away, like at that time, Babylon was here, like Fred and Vince and Steph had just become world champions. And then for example, you know, that time, like you were here too, was a pretty interesting time in Empuria. Like there was lots of cool stuff going on and I'd never seen anything like that before. And there was a whole bunch of different cultures and languages and stuff. And I was like, cool, well, like I can identify with this culture. And I just started coming back basically every summer until the point where I realized, well, that's the place where I want to live.
It's a massive experience in life, isn't it, to find yourself in a situation where you're having a barbecue and there's 19 people and 19 nationalities. For me, it was incredible. It was overwhelming, that experience of just being like in the world. It's like a small bit of the world.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, I think that's one of the most beautiful things with our sport. Everywhere you are around the world, it's so such a multinational sport, you know.
Yeah.
And in Europe, even more so, perhaps because you got so many countries so close, and Empuria being like the biggest and most significant drop zone in Europe. Of course, tons of people come here, so you're always exposed to this rad mix of culture and lifestyle and different influences from around the world. And it's also been super interesting on like a life level because, like you mentioned before, we both arrived to Empuria in like early days in our career is 2004, and now it's going on like 18, 19 years later, whatever the math is. But like, it's interesting to see the place, how it's changed over the years, you know, and to have been a part of that change. And I still believe that Europe works really well for me, so I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's a good place to be. Your degree was it was pretty cool degree, design, wasn't it?
Yeah, I studied product design at university, at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. And basically, like, I was pretty certain that I would go into a career of skydiving.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to further my education and get a tertiary education. And then the idea behind that was that, of course, any further education that you get is going to help you throughout life. And I have an end goal to work a little bit closer to the industry with the skydiving experience that I have. And I'm actually working on a pretty exciting project right now. And my design background too has helped me to be quite close to my partners and my the suppliers, sponsors, you know. And so that's stuff that I'm really interested in, is having a bit more of a hands-on approach with the gear, and at least a little bit more of a deeper understanding and stuff like that. So yeah, I really love the gear side of the sport. Something that really pushes my buttons.
That's really cool that you're using you're able to use your education. That's quite rare, isn't it? We know a lot of skydivers who've been educated in a certain thing, and it's just not possible really to cross it over. That's really interesting that you're getting now an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, but you know, also, Regan, I've seen, like, you know, the sport's changed so much since I've been a kid in the sport. I can still remember the gear we were using, the planes, the concept, the general approach to safety and stuff. And now, like, the sport's really in such a cool stage of it's still very young, but it's reaching a certain maturity within its moment. And it's really cool to see how, like, you know, even just digital media, like, there's people who work in to promote the sport there, and then there's people working on high end of manufacturing and design, and then, for example, somebody like yourself, what you're doing is such a great job for the sport, you know, like, you're an ambassador and you're working with tons of cool brands, and you're flying the flag for the sport outside of the normal reach. So, you know, these type of places were not really available. You couldn't make a career by doing social media for skydiving even 10 years ago. I mean, social media didn't exist. And so I think, like, everybody's contribution to the sport and what they've studied and what they've practiced, like yourself, is a great example. You kind of end up carving a niche for the sport and for yourself, and we're taking the sport to an interesting place, which is a little bit more sustainable for people to stay in the industry, even if you decide to be very heavily involved in the jumping side, or a little bit less. It doesn't really matter, because we need all pieces of the puzzle, you know.
Yeah, you've always kept your vision. I've known this, Will, since I first met you. You've always had your vision very wide on what's happening and where you are. You're very self-aware of what's going on. You know, in so much, I want to talk a little bit about the foundation, the Care All. You know, it's something that you know, I always thought you would do something like this. You've got your eye on the bigger picture of what needs to be done, of how we can make things better. For anybody who doesn't know, just tell us a little bit about it, Will, what the Care All Foundation is.
I'm really happy you brought up that point, because we're actually busy working with a really, really cool project at the moment. So the Care All Foundation was founded by Allegra Nassi, and I've helped her over the years to promote it and to make it a little bit more known in our sport. And we were finding a way that we can work on a more humanitarian kind of giving back idea to the sport. And it's really not easy. It's a very sensitive thing, but, you know, living the lifestyles that we've lived and being incredibly privileged, like we all are if we skydivers, to find a way that we can give a little bit back to the sport. So what we decided after a few years of trying to figure out how we can do that is that we focused on three what they called actions. And the one is called the Sky Family Fund, which is a fund that's in place for people who are seriously injured or who die. We can help them with some immediate funds. You know, it's not like we're talking about millions, but we try to get donations over the year. And then, for example, some people are in a tricky place financially. When you have an accident, it's the last thing you want, so we can help you there. And then the other fund that we have is basically just a communication bridge between us and offsetting company called Klima Invest in Germany. So we're just helping people to bridge the gap for climate offsetting, so we can at least try to balance out our kind of impact. And for example, skydiving in Puerto Bravo is completely zero with their emissions, thanks to the Carroll Foundation. And then the third action that's ones that's really moving as we speak, just like a few days ago, is called Let the Kids Fly, and that's one that we identified that like the sport is it's so difficult to access unless you have lots of funds or resources or you know somebody. So it's a shame because there's so much talent out there for sport in general, but if you don't have the resources, you can't touch the sport. So we contacted like quite a few centers for previously disadvantaged kids in the municipality of Girona, which is kind of around Barcelona area, around Spain. And what we did is we started a selection process, and we've identified 3 kids after like quite a rigorous selection process. And now they've just done their first flight in the wind tunnel, and the winner of that process is going to get the tunnel instructor course, you know.
Wow.
So this actually, they just did their first 15 minutes last week. So now like I think we should have the final decision on Wednesday. So basically these kids who would never have any type of dream to have the resource to go and even just do a first time flight, like we've given 150 kids the chance to have the dream that they can do this, which I think is probably the biggest difference we've made there. And then after the selection process of interviews and profile and like checking out their profile and stuff, we've got to the final selection of 3. And this is a really cool format, Regan, because this format is completely replicable around the whole world. You know, you can run the same thing in Thailand or in Singapore, in Brazil. Anyway, it's like you just need people to want to do it. And like Allegra Nasty's developed like a really amazing structure, and like the whole process, it's taken years, but like we've got the whole format there. And then of course you need some funds too. It's really nice to give, but you need something to give. So like we reached out to the community. I encourage you guys to go and check out Carroll Foundation. You can find the link on where you can find the social on Instagram, or perhaps after we share this interview I can share the link there and you can have a look what we're doing. But it's really cool stuff. Yeah.
And that winner, it's life-changing, isn't it? It's absolutely life-changing.
Yeah, I mean, this is a kid who gets a qualification in sport, and just like we were saying before, like imagine this guy's like well, there's a few candidates, but like they win, and they you know, imagine if this kid becomes actually the next Spanish champion.
Yeah.
I mean, they came out of nowhere. Often like people from adverse backgrounds, or people come from adversity with the fire, they need to prove something to themselves. Like imagine if this kid comes out of nowhere and becomes one of the best flyers ever in the history of the sport, and inspires a whole new wave of people. Imagine what that kid's going to give back, and it's life-changing. They get a qualification that they can use around the whole world. They're going to get to travel, they're going to meet people. So it's a really cool thing that the foundation has done, and I'm super proud to be connected to that. But pretty much all of the work that's being done there is done by Allegra Nasi, and by the people who are helping us to make that a reality. But it's a really cool thing, and it's nice to do something that's not for your own ego, or not for your own kind of satisfaction, just to give something in a world that you have the contacts, you have the resources, and you can at least facilitate growth in that area, you know.
Fantastic, absolutely amazing. I mean, look at Danny Gallego, he was working in restaurants in Figueres, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's a very similar example, except of course his background is different. But yeah, but Danny from Fly Warriors came out of you know, a little local town around here, and he's now one of the best flyers in the world. So you know, I think this spirit of also like trying to encourage local people and yeah, you might have the guy who's serving you an ice cream down the road might be the next freestyle world champion. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. Well, what's happening with you at the moment in your own skydiving? What are you cruising through? What are you aiming at? Because you did all the competition stuff. Congratulations, big round of applause for freestyle world champion with France and with Yo. Was that 2012? When was that?
To 2014.
2014.
Becomes a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what's going on with me and my skydiving, Regan? It's I'm focusing a little bit more now on teaching, which has been really cool. After investing so much time of training and learning how to learn and how to train and how to compete, everything, like it takes a few years to make the transition to learn how to teach everything that I've learned, and been working quite a bit with Fly Warriors, here in Empura Bravo, doing a couple camps, and also with Tora Tora. Myself and Tora Tora, along with Dami, we developed a coach workshop, which is basically like a load organizing course to train the new generation of free fly load organizers, basing a lot of our information on how to be competent skydivers, not necessarily just how to straighten your legs in an angle jump. So that's been a really interesting journey. And then in terms of my own work, I like to mix it up. Like, I think there's a few categories of skydiving that we should stick to for sure. The one that's the closest and the dearest to me is one-on-one training, because I like the intimacy of working with one person and being able to really connect with them and understand them. So for sure, the one-on-one is my biggest chunk of my work, and the thing that I can say I enjoy the most. And then there's the campsite, which is really cool. And then I've also been very fortunate to do some awesome events in the past couple of years, like traveling the world, that kind of more adventure side. Like we saw each other in the Maldives, and then in the end of October, I'm going to Egypt, and I've done some really cool events around the world, in Brazil and et cetera, which is really nice. And then the European scene. And then something I do the least of is a little bit of boogie skydiving, maybe once a year. I just sign up for a boogie or get asked to go and work at a boogie, and then it's a little bit more about the social side and just keep my finger on the pulse. So on those four kind of sides of the sport. And then of course, like that's on the skydiving side, and then I've got my other stuff which is connected to the industry, such as the foundation and a pretty cool tech project that I'm working on too. So
I look forward to finding out what that's all about. Surfing's been a big part of your life as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, actually, growing up in Cape Town, it was pretty easy to get involved in surfing. I had the beaches close to my house and close to university, and it's a lot more accessible when you're a young teen to go surfing than it is to go skydiving. And actually, just recently I was in Switzerland. I went to go visit a couple of friends there, and I stopped in at that new wave, Alaya Bay. That was really, really interesting. It was kind of like seeing how the surfing world has moved in a similar direction to skydiving, where like the wave technology now is kind of like what wind tunnels are for skydiving. So that was pretty interesting stuff.
Do you have a go on the wave in Imperia? Is it Flow Rider they've got there? The wave club thing? Did you try that a little bit?
Yeah, I have actually, but a little bit of a while ago now. But I much prefer like the real concept of the wave, like the pool with the barrel. It's a little bit more my thing.
Yeah, it's important, isn't it? I was thinking about this for many air sports, not only skydiving and flying like we do, but for all, if you find yourself working full time and in it and totally absorbed with it, it's important to have other things outside, isn't it? Like surfing, you've got going on. You've got to let yourself breathe a little bit from the sport.
Yeah, I think you need to diversify a little bit and have a little bit of a release that's not connected to skydiving, which is hard because it touches very close to my heart in terms of a passion and my sports and my career. So as much as I love the idea of doing other things, and I do, but I always miss skydiving when I'm not doing it. It's still like this. It still didn't change, you know. So I think, but it's mega important, and like the area where we live in, there's so much cool stuff to do too. So you can go and spend really nice days just exploring. And I touched on a little bit of paragliding over the winter, which was really nice, and even just cruising around like around this area, doing some beach days and some swimming. And you know, it's just also a nice area to enjoy some time off. There's some fantastic wining and dining around here. You know all about that. You know,
best food in the world, Will. That's what I've realized. Round that way, it's the best food and the best price as well. That's for sure.
The advantage of living in Europe, you know. So I think it's you know, like perhaps the word I'm looking for is to try to find some type of balance, right?
Yeah.
Well, something that's been pretty cool here is that since COVID, like the drop zone's been open from 10 to 5 during the week for most of the year.
Yeah.
And then on weekends 9 to 7 or something like that. So basically the work hours have been concentrated. So like, but my jump numbers completely unaffected. I've already done like almost 600 jumps this year. Yeah. And like, so doing the same amount of jumps, so let's say from 10 to 5, and then, you know, from 5 in summer, 5 till 9 is still completely sunlight outside. Yeah. So that's been really cool. Like I feel like there's been a shift to being a bit more efficient with our jumping time here. So that is actually provided like an even better quality of life, because usually you'd be like, oh, I need to do this little mission. Okay, next week, Tuesday, I have a day off. Whereas now you're like, okay, well, at 5 o'clock, I can do it, you know?
Yeah.
Even if it's just, oh, I'm going to go for a swim, or I'm going to take a little drive somewhere and enjoy an hour or two on the beach. So, yeah, I suppose the balance, right?
Yeah, that's really important, because those summer days, it can be long, you know, 7 in the morning till midnight sometimes by the time you finish and get away. It's that's really interesting, actually. That's a whole new way of doing things, isn't it?
Total game changer, Regan. Like it's been really cool. And the drop zone here in Emporia is actually in a super cool place at the moment. They just opened up the new bar restaurant facility. Yeah. I'd have to say, without a doubt, it's the best bar restaurant I've seen in the world on a drop zone. It's like absolutely unreal. You can get like, there's amazing mixologists there, for example. You can get guys flaring cocktails and stuff on the drop zone with the really nice food and great service. And so the drop zone's in a super cool place. If anybody's curious to come and check out Emporia Brava, I encourage you to do it.
So if you were going to go and do a jump now on your own, Will, just to go and spend half an hour just doing your own thing, what would you do? What would be your favorite little skydive on your own?
To be honest, I have this really deep love affair right now with my Valkyrie, you know. So that's something. If I go on my own, if you just said on my own, I never really consider it being on my own, because I've always got my Valkyrie with me. You know? Right. So, like, if I literally didn't have another human being to skydive with, I've always got a good friend of mine, and she's a sexy little beast, you know, the 75 VK. So I go take her for a little rag around the sky, and otherwise, if I'm going to go and skydive with other people, then I'm probably going to go and try to find someone to do a two-way with. That's definitely more my thing. Or jump with a couple of people and do a nice angle jump. You know, those are pretty much the 3 things that I'm focusing most of my energy, training, and dedication towards in terms of free fall activity and canopy, of course.
Talking of your Valkyrie, you've been producing some really stunning images under canopy, with the canopy in the shot, with the background. You've got a good eye. Obviously, it's for, you know, design as your career choice, but you have got a good eye for composition and color. Some beautiful colors you're flying.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think a little bit of a cheat there for me is choosing a canopy that's very visible. You know, that contrast against the background. So that already makes makes it interesting to look at, and I do my best to put my Valkyrie wherever I can, you know, make her look even more sexy.
It's funny with choice of canopy colors, you know, there's a safety element to it too. You want to be seen. Yeah.
No, I'm a huge activist for that. Like, I believe the brighter the canopy, the more probability you have of being seen, and then the higher your chance is of not being involved in a collision if you can see somebody. It's kind of like, imagine you driving a black car at night with no lights. It's like you just can't go on the road like that. But for some reason, the manufacturers like to produce blue canopies, gray ones, white ones, black ones, which I find a little bit weird because it could be stopped at the top of the pyramid, you know. But instead, we allow people to buy a black canopy. We allow people to buy a green canopy. It doesn't make any sense in my mind. I actually have expressed that to PD and NZ.
Yes.
I got a really nice reply from PD and no reply from NZ. But anyway, so I think if the manufacturing doesn't want to do anything about that, which I understand it's a little bit tricky, but then at least we can try to promote having bright canopies, you know, trying to be seen.
Yeah, good stuff. I've just got a brand new one. Need to hook it up. Got a nice. I mean, I'm a bit older than you, Will, so I've got to be a bit more careful. But I've got a beautiful 107 Sabre 3.
Oh, but that's a fantastic canopy. I've jumped to Sabre 3. I'm a massive fan. Which colors? Don't tell me it's gray or black.
Black.
No,
there's black. It's PD colours, but it's got some black in there, of course.
Okay, got some black, but it's not completely black.
No.
Well, you can get some spray paints and just put a big RG on it somewhere, you know.
Yeah. How have you found the safety with a lot of people coming back after COVID? You know, it's been a bit of a concern in all air sports, of course, with people being current and non-current.
Yeah, I think. I think it's been pretty good. There's been, of course, some accidents and some contributing factors to accidents has been the currency. But in general, people have been pretty on it, and especially trying to encourage. But wow, it seems like a long time ago, but it was very relevant last year. But I think in just encouraging the dialogue that, okay, maybe you're not current. When last did you jump, etc., etc. But people have been pretty switched on about that too, and I think though, like on an aircraft level, there's also been a couple of incidences that I think might be related to that at the same time. You know, like, I mean, planes, not just in skydiving, but in general aviation, planes are made to be used. They're not made to be sat inside of a hangar or on an apron. You know, so of course, I mean, currency even in a normal year affects our decisions and makes a huge difference to our safety. So like, in this time too, where it was like people were shut down for months and some people couldn't travel, etc., etc. Definitely been a factor, but there's also been enough general awareness about it, and I've seen some people make some really cool decision in terms of going back to do a canopy course or just being very aware that they're not current, so starting slowly. And so I think it's been handled the best that it can be, you know, at least from what I've seen.
Good stuff. So just to wrap up, Will, what's going on for you next? What's going on? What we got coming up?
I'm in Emporia now for a little while, which is really cool. I got a couple of students coming into town shortly. Like one of my friends' students was stuck in China for like the past year, and he's gonna travel now, so he's pretty excited about that. And so I'll spend a bit of time doing some one-on-one with him and another friend of mine from Ukraine. So got some nice clients coming back into town, which will be cool. And then I'm going off to Germany for 4 days in August, and then I'm going to be back here for a bit, and then I've got Egypt, and then Dubai, and then kind of winter starts to pop its head up, and there's a couple of stuff that's not confirmed, so I can't speak about it, but there'll be some epic winter destinations. Put it that way, you know?
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to see you.
Yeah, likewise, mate. Really nice to speak to you, and thank you for having me on your show.
Been my pleasure, man. You take care. Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, cheers, Regan. Bye-bye.